Hi, Alan Cox here. Hey, welcome to part 4 and our final video on privileged identity management. Today, I'm going to kind of just put a little bookend on this, and as we talk today, we're going to talk about some of the logging as well as alerts, and then some access reviews as we finish this series up. So in part 1, we just kind of overview. We talked a little bit about some of the terminology within privileged identity management, like just-in-time access and least privilege and those sort of things. Part 2, we kind of set up a role. We used the global administrator role, and we set up some parameters around that. Some how long can the activation be, and some workflows and all of that. Some approvals. Then in part 3, in our last video, we went through the process of actually elevating our user Liam to the global administrator role and kind of what that looked like. Well, today we're going to see kind of some alerts as well as some logging, and then we'll look at some access reviews. I don't expect it to take too long, but that's going to be our focus today. So let's get started. All right, here we are once again inside of Microsoft Entra. So entra.microsoft.com, and we're going to go down here. And I have favorited, remember, we favorited the privileged identity management. But you can't go down to ID governance here, this section here, and you can go to privileged identity management. Now, what we're going to start here is interesting because we're going to start over here. We'll talk about some audit history and all of that here, my audit history, which is my personal audit history. But we're going to go over here to discover and monitor. We're going to click that. And that's going to open up a few more things here for us. We're going to see roles and assignments. We kind of looked at that. We've got alerts. We're going to take a look at that. Access review and discovery and insights. I want to start right there real quick, actually, because we're going to click discovery and insights, and this just gives you a little bit of information about what is PIM, and how should I secure my role assignments, and it just kind of goes into a little bit about that. And so that is in preview, and so we can do discovered assignments in my tenant. So active permanent global administrator, accounts assigned to highly privileged roles, etc. All right, so let's just go to alerts, because when we go to alerts, we cannot go in and create different alerts. These are alerts that are set of roles that require multi-factor authentication for activation. Okay, so we can click, there are 2 roles there. We click into there, and we can see that identity governance and directory readers, and that's just what I have set there. So we can go into, but I want to read through some of these here. Roles that are being assigned outside of privileged identity management. Okay, so remember we looked at that last time, and we see that there was one role that was outside of privileged identity management. There are too many global administrators. Okay, so we have a count of 4. The risk level is low. Once you get, yeah, and here they are. Okay, and then once we get beyond a certain level, and remember, it's recommended to use least privileged roles with just enough privileges to get the job done. So, but when we get to, 5, 6, then it's going to start alerting. This is going to scale up here from a low threat to medium or a high threat. Potential sales account in a privileged role. So there are 2. Let's take a look and see what those may be. Yeah, so there's a couple accounts that I just don't really use because they're really just kind of there. And that's a good point, though. It does kind of alert here. Now, I cannot go in here and actually create a new alert. These are kind of predefined, but when they tag, when they hit, then they kind of light up here for us. Now we're going to go to settings here because we're going to look at some of these. So the organization doesn't have uh, Azure AD Premium or Premium P2. So this tells me you're going to get an alert if you try to use privileged identity management. This alert's going to fire up. Roles that don't require multi-factor authentication for activation. So there are some roles that do not. Eligible administrators aren't activating their privileged role. So if you have an eligible administrator and they're never activating that role, then maybe they don't need to be eligible anymore. Roles that are being activated too frequently. So maybe there's something that's somebody's constantly going in and activating a role, and when we have that, then you end up having too many uh, too many activations going on, and when that happens, then maybe it's time to consider doing maybe they should be an active assignment. Now, if it's a really highly elevated role like global admin or whatever, then we don't want those to be always active. And they shouldn't be elevating all the time for those. If they just need to look at things and consider global reader or other reader accounts, right? So roles are being activated too frequently. There are too many global administrators. We looked at that. And then there are some potential stale accounts and privileged roles. So there are roles that have not been really used. They've not signed in. And they may be stale accounts, but yeah, they still carry some privileged roles. So if we click into any of these, we'll see if any of these can be editable, and we see that some of them are. So roles don't require multi-factor authentication. Okay, uh, there are currently no settings. There are no settings available for this alert. So the roles, the alerts inside of privileged identity management are a bit lacking, to be honest. And it's just telling you that we can't really change anything here. We can disable the alert so that the alert doesn't trigger. Eligible administrators aren't activated their privileged role. So we can say number of days without activation, then we'll get this alert. So you can configure a little bit of that. Okay, so I'm going to leave this as the default of 30 days. So the 30 days, if I don't get an activation, this alert is going to fire up for me. And there are no settings, but again, I can disable that role, or that alert rather. Roles are being activated too frequently. So here we can modify the maximum amount of minutes between activation to trigger in this alert. Okay, so we can modify, when roles are being activated too frequently, what do we consider to be too frequent, right? So you have some control there. Too many global administrators. So here's where we can make this change. So the minimum number of global administrators to trigger the computation percentage. Okay, 3, and then at what percentage? So minimum percentage of global administrators out of the total administrators to trigger this alert. So again, some configuration we can do there as well. Of course, we can disable that alert as well. And stale accounts. Okay, again, we can go a number of days. How many days we consider it stale, right? So we can bump this up as we wish, but I'm just leaving it to, and we can actually click in here and type out 30. I'm just going to leave it at 30 days. And of course, I'm not going to change anything there, so we'll just disregard that. That's fine. Okay, so that's a little bit of the alerts. All right. We can go down here. If we go down to settings, we can look at any role that has non-default settings. So we can see global administrator. It's been updated. I updated it. And we can see that there are it's been modified. So it's not the default setting inside of the environment. And of course, we can sort this and see of any of these that have been modified. That's the only one I've modified. So anytime if I were to go to configure conditional access administrator, it's going to give me the default settings out of the box, so I would go in and modify that. So that's an easy way for us to see that. Okay. Then I'm going to go down here and look at some resource audits. So resource audit is what have, and I'm going to change this to, instead of the last day, I'm going to change this to the last week, so we get some results here. So we can see resources that I have been, so here's the target, here's a subject, but we can see what happened. Remove member from the role, completed PIM deactivation. Okay, so these are auditing. I'm auditing the activity based on the resource, the role, etc. Okay. All right, so we can go in and we can take a look at any of these. And of course, we can go in and get some detail around those. Then we can go in and let's look at my audit. These are things that I have done. Okay, again, I'm going to change this to, say, last week. Okay, so these are the things that I, that I have particularly done. I've updated role setting in PIM. Okay, so if I modified administrator, global administrator, which I did, add eligible member to that role, etc., etc., etc. Process role removal request. Okay, so that's a removal. Actually, that was one that did fail, but we saw that. If you saw that video, it did fail initially, and then it was successful. So that's a little bit of some of that. Now, as the user, and I'm here as an administrator, but as a user, if I'm here in Liam and I want to go into privileged identity management as well, he can go to his audit history and see, and again, change. It is changed last week, but I can see some things that related to Liam, to myself. If I were Liam, I can see some things that happened and who initiated the activity, right? So a little bit of, what's been going on with my account related to privileged identity management. Okay. And finally, let's talk about access reviews. So access reviews. So an access review is basically allows us to send out some prompts, some notifications to say, hey, do you still need this? Do you still need this access, etc. So we're going to go here and we're going to click, I'm going to click new, and I'm just going to say GA access review. Okay, and I can give it a start day. When do I want this review period to start? And we'll say that's fine. And I can say, I want this. Maybe quarterly. Okay, and I want it to run for I can say 25 days. So how long is this review period going to run? I may say 10 days, and then I want it to end never or end by. Okay, but I can say never because I want this every quarterly. Every quarter, I want an access review of our global administrators to happen. And the scope is all users in group. And I can do inactive users only, but I'm going to say users and group. And we're going to click here, and I can say global administrator, because I want this access review to only apply to global administrators. So I'm going to say global administrator. Okay. And then assignment type, all active and eligible. Okay. That's fine. So basically I can say eligible only. So if you're eligible and you still need to be eligible for this role, then it's going to prompt you for that. If you're active and you still need to maintain active global administrator, which really shouldn't be the case in most cases, but you can have this. In this case, I'm going to do both. So kind of nag both, and then you could do reviewers. So you could do members self. So basically, they're going to get an email message that says, "Do you still need this role?" And if they do not respond upon completion of settings, auto apply results to the resource is enabled to disable. If users do not respond, I can say remove access. So if they do not respond to this email prompt, this prompt is going to come out to them. during the cycle, the review cycle, then it will automatically be removed for them. That's one way to do it. We could also do, we can have selected users in groups that are the reviewers, or their direct manager can review it as well. It depends on the business. Self is fine, because we've got this automation that says, auto apply results to the resource. So if we click on here, it says if the user's access is denied, their access to the resource will be removed after the review is completed. Okay. So auto apply results to the resource. I'm going to enable this. And then all right. And then at the end of the review cycle, send a notification then, and I can send notification to, whoever we want to send this to. And then advanced settings here, show recommendations. And the show recommendations is if this is enabled, the system provides recommendations to reviewers based on the enabled criteria. Okay. It require reason on approval, some mail notifications, reminders, and then uh, additional content for reviewer email. So this is just access reviews, but again, I recommend doing this for your different roles. And if you want to split these out here, you can, eligible only and then active only, so that users and or an approver or a manager will be getting those messages basically saying, does this user still need to be eligible for global administrator, or eligible for whatever the role is that we have set. So that is access reviews. And uh, and I think that's it. I think that wraps up our little series on privileged identity management. And so anyway, I hope this has been helpful for you. Thank you for watching.